All right, Rush to Reason, Denver's Afternoon Rush, KLZ 560. Our special guest now, Dr. Anthony Harper joining us. Dr. Harper, welcome back, Rush to Reason. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm very thankful. I'm here at the White House right now, John.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us. And sun's about to set, I'm guessing there, right?
What was that?
I said the sun's about to set there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right. Getting to that time of the year. All right, so give us an update on what's going on in the White House. You had a particular situation that happened as well where Fox News even talks about an unnamed reporter in the briefing room asking a question. That unnamed reporter, by the way, was you. So talk about that.
Well, that was a special, that was actually a surprising event, having Fox News bring attention to this. But it didn't mention the background of this information was when I was with the press secretary on the Roe v. Wade decision day. I believe that was June 24th, a Friday, and I went up to her office after she'd canceled the press meetings, and I asked her face-to-face, what about a child's right to life, and what is your response to our Christian audience? She wouldn't look me in the face, and she seemed to turn away in shame, but didn't want to respond at all. She didn't give me an answer, any kind of response. And also today, I was at the press secretary's office again, and I got to see her face-to-face. And I actually told her I wanted to ask you a question about abortion and a child's right to life. And she wouldn't say anything.
Interesting. They're basically just dodging the question, I guess is what you're saying. They're not going to answer it.
Yes. I was prepared to actually ask a hot question today, and that is about why isn't President Biden submitting to a cognitive test at the request of 50 members of Congress?
Good question, by the way.
Yeah, and this was in Fox News yesterday about the concerns about the cognitive decline of President Biden. But so I'm here to ask these challenging questions. Appreciate people praying for me, and not easy to be here. Very few courageous reporters.
That was going to be my next question, Dr. Harper. What's the temperature like? I mean, temperature as in what's the reporters in the room? I mean, everybody else. I mean, we see different things from our view, from what we can watch on television and YouTube and different places that we get some of that news from. But what's the temperature in the room like now versus what it was under Trump?
Well, actually, it's very hot right now regarding the press access. There was a news reporter protest, a letter signed by Sam Donaldson, the president of the White House Correspondents Association. This letter everyone can see on the internet. They just type in news reporter protest. It was in June of this year, and I've been part of this protest. I signed my letter to this. A lot of reporters. So a lot of frustration, John, here, growing anger. As far as the questions that were raised in that protest letter that you can read on the internet, they have not been answered. Those questions relate to restricted access. So the White House is not giving us an answer about who is deciding who gets into these press meetings and access. And we usually get the response back, restricted access, no space available, but that's not true at all. So it seems very clear to me that there's a cover-up here. They don't want President Biden exposure to the press very often. And, by the way, I have a doctorate degree in psychology, and I've witnessed Parkinson's symptoms in him. Anyone can look at the Mayo Clinic website and see the symptoms of Parkinson's. But when I was here at the press, when I was here for a press meeting with Biden, I was close to him, and I saw him involuntarily shake his right arm. Uncontrollable thing. And he's had tremors, and I've seen the way he walks across the White House lawn. I've seen the gaze in his eyes. And, by the way, dementia is part of Parkinson's.
Yeah, no, it is. I've had some very good friends go through some of what you're talking about, and it's very sad. I mean, I would not wish that on anyone, Dr. Harper. That's not a fun thing to do, but I think it's also it's also one of those things, though, where if that is, in fact, the case, it needs to be recognized and dealt with as well.
Well, it does. My concern is about cover-up. As I mentioned, the White House is trying to protect President Biden from the press.
Right.
He can't handle the challenge. And I remember kind of a famous thing when Peter Doocy asked him a question at Fox News, and he put his head in his hands. He just couldn't handle the pressure.
And I think that's partially why he does very little, if any, live. Well, let's just say this, Dr. Harper, you know this. The interviews that are even done aren't interviews. He gets up, makes a statement, reads from the teleprompter, and off he goes. There's never any question and answer, and haven't seen that for quite some time, if at all.
Right, and then he gets confused about where he's standing on the stage.
Right. So Charlie has a question for you, and I'm interested in this as well. What's the perception of, not the hardcore lefty reporters that are in no matter what, but the rest of the press team that's there? What's the perception of the current press secretary versus Jen Psaki?
Oh, a lot different. They really don't care for her. But this press secretary is a real case. And that's hard to sum it all
well,
up.
And I'll give you my perception, and you can tell me whether I'm correct or not. But what I see from the outside in, and what I look at when I see some of the responses and the different things that I'll even play from time to time on air, is I see a very arrogant, highly educated, but with no common sense or the ability to even field questions correctly without having the proper notes in front of her. She's sort of like Joe Biden in that regard. She cannot answer anything off the cuff unless everything's in front of her. And if she's challenged on anything along those lines, her answer is to be antagonistic and mean and not really answer the question.
Well, that is a good summary of that. She's not professional in any way. I've been in many press meetings with previous press secretary Jennifer Psaki. And the good thing about Jennifer Psaki was that she did call upon me finally.
Mm-hmm.
I was after I met with her, but this press secretary is not accessible. Just really, closes the door and really can't handle more substantive questions. So it's just all about, to me, propaganda. I'm in a propaganda camp. She's a poster child for President Biden. She was actually, when I was here recently, she was announcing, I'm here to tell my personal story. I want to announce the National Coming Out Month, and I want to share my personal story. Well, it was very upsetting about the lack of really concern about our news reporter questions that day, and continued to be a problem. So it's so upsetting. I just need a lot of prayer, and we need a lot more courageous news reporters here. Not would be afraid to ask the more substantive questions.
Yeah, I get the feeling right now that with the exception of folks like you, Ducey, maybe a few others, the majority of the folks in the room are yes men, yes women.
Oh, so much so. And I want to encourage people to learn more of what I'm trying to do here on behalf of a lot of Christian and Jewish people. And I was going to say I've been reporting on anti-Semitism a lot, and it was amazing that Press Secretary Psaki would let me ask my anti-Semitism questions, which are on the YouTube channel that we have. But the president of Israel is here this week. He's scheduled to be here Wednesday. And, you heard the news that this White House was blaming previous President Trump, calling him anti-Semitic. But I have news for everyone. This current administration is funding anti-Semitic organizations like the Palestinian Authority, like UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Works Agency, is very anti-Semitic, where they're training children to hate the Jews and lying about the whole land, calling it Palestine when it's really Israel. And for those that may not know, that the whole idea of Palestine was an invention of the Roman Emperor Hadrian in about 122 A.D.
Correct. Yep. No, you're correct on that. No. And again, we should let folks know, too. Tell them your website and how folks can find you, Dr. Harper.
Oh, well, John, thank you. It's Intermountain Christian News, imcnews.org, and there's a YouTube banner on our website. People want to get involved. I have an article, Fake News and What to Do About It. So
awesome.
People can read that. They can get involved so we can make a difference here. We really have a desperate need for good reporters here that aren't afraid. And,
Amen.
Of course, prayer for favor to be called on and access. But it is miraculous having these encounters with her, at least making our concerns heard to her.
Last question, then I'll let you go, and I appreciate your time, Dr. Harper. With what I feel, and a lot of folks now, I think even the Democrats themselves feel like there will be a red wave that sweeps through this next election here in just a couple of weeks now. not that far away. What do you feel will happen inside the press room after that? Because I think that's going to happen. Will that have a negative effect, or will that make them wake up and realize they need to do some things differently?
I actually think that the press meetings will be a lot more lively when that happens, and I do hope it happens. It can't, though, by the way, happen unless there's election integrity.
True.
The big issue is about voting, and we saw what happened in the last presidential election with a lot of massive mail-in balloting, and that is that's a recipe for disaster. We really do have to have an accountability of the people that are voting. They have to be legally qualified, constitutionally qualified to vote.
Agree.
And to verify all these signatures, and that's a real big deal, and it will be a very special day. I'll be back at the White House on November 9th after the election results coming in, and I think there might be a lot of people out in your audience that might want there to be, a change of events, a turn of events here because of not just our economy, but there is a real moral decline in our nation that President Lincoln talked about in the middle of the Civil War. It's much worse now. People can read President Lincoln's proclamation in the Civil War at the top of our website, which is imcnews.org, but there are some very special things that he said, John. That America is a nation that has forgotten God. We have become too proud and arrogant, too proud to pray to the one that created us. And I really like the phrase that he said, intoxicated with unbroken success. He said, we need to repent of our many national sins in hopes that God will have mercy on us and forgive us. And then he quoted from Psalms 33:12, blessed only are those nations whose God is the Lord.
Good stuff. Dr. Harper, thank you again for all that you do. Lord bless you, and we'll keep praying for you, sir.
Thank you so much, John.
You're very welcome. Appreciate you joining us and taking time out of your day.